right, now it's on. Come on in. Welcome. Happy Monday. Happy, I think it's Memorial Day, but whatever day it is, it's time for another week in space. And I'm your host with the most, Joan Emerson Bell. I'm an astrologer, tarot reader, therapist. I do some life coaching or wizard coaching, if you will. And I like to show up every Monday and tell you about the astrology of the week, give you your astro weather to help you navigate this week with a little style, a little grace, with an elegance and a savoir-faire. And so, yeah, bringing you your weekly wizard report. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Um, I don't know if I have much for a preamble, but yeah, this week we're going to be talking about the new moon in Gemini. Yeah, happy Magic Monday. Hi, Leslie. Nice to see you, my friend. Yeah, come on in, relax, take a load off, get something refreshing to drink. And yeah, let me regale you with tales of the music of the spheres. Bonjour. Um, yeah. So before we get started, I just want to let folks know that I'm going to be co-facilitating a dreaming retreat on the sacred waters in Greece. This is coming up in September, September 20th through 27th in Epidavros. It's going to be a week-long retreat, going to some sacred sites, checking out sacred waters, a lot of sites that are sacred to Hera. We'll be talking about mythology, doing some dream incubation. I'll be talking about the water signs in the chart, and a way of connecting with the element of water through mythology, symbolic thinking, dream work. It's going to be a blast. So, there's a link in my bio if you're interested in that, and I'll put a link in the show notes for those of y'all on YouTube or checking this out in the podcast form. That's the only thing that I got coming up at the moment, so I wanted to drop that before we get into the astrology of the week. All right. So today is the new moon in Gemini. That'll be happening around 8 p.m. I believe, Pacific time, making that 11 p.m. on the East Coast. We'll get to that in a minute because we have another transit that is active during this new moon, happening a little earlier in the day. We have Mercury, the messenger in Gemini, the sign that they rule, coming into a nice supportive sextile with Neptune in Aries. This is happening at 1 degree and 46 arc minutes. So Neptune is related to dreams and visions and imagination, right? Helps us to connect in with other dimensions in ourselves as well as in the world around us. Mercury, right, the mediator and messenger, helps us to make connections and process the information that we are receiving from our experience. Um, and so when these two planets come together in a supportive aspect like a sextile, it allows them to work together and come into relationship. The sextile is kind of associated with Venus. It is a Venusian aspect, right? So it's about relationship and that sort of relational dynamic. And this can really assist us in processing some of the Neptunian information that we are receiving from the world around us. Excuse me. um, so yeah, we have this opportunity to gather some valuable information from our dreams, right? And to be able to process it in ways that allows that to come into the conscious mind. Mercury is liminal, right? They exist in the in-betweens. They are a twilight archetype, right? And so, they are only seen at dawn or at dusk, right? They occupy these sort of liminal spaces, these threshold spaces in the sky as well as in mythology, right? There are Hermes, Mercury is a god of crossroads and a god of these sort of in-between spaces and a god that rules over thresholds, right? And so instead of trying to like really shine a light of our conscious mind on our dreams and like make sense of them, get you my air quotes, um, right? Mercury really allows us to sit at the threshold of that dreaming and waking, that in between space, right? Mercury is really skilled at occupying that kind of liminal area, which allows us to kind of meet the dream and learn from it instead of needing to like force it into the light of day. Oh, I had a dream about a tree, so it means this, right? We can just, Mercury allows us to just sort of be with that and see what the tree might want to tell us instead of us taking this symbol and trying to make it literal and bringing it into consciousness and being like, oh, it must mean this, or oh, I watched this thing, so it's from that, right? If we are able to kind of be in communication with that dream space, we can ask, hey, tree, like, what's up with you, right? If we stay in that like liminal before we go right into waking solar consciousness, right? And so it allows us to sort of lean into this process instead of saying, oh, this is what this is, or this is what this must be, or this is what it has to be. It allows us to be led by the dreaming process or the dream itself into instead of what this is, into what could this be, right? And Mercury is very curious, so this allows us to be curious about this sort of unseen information and this liminal information, right, that we are receiving from the unconscious or from the unseen world around us. Another aspect of this supportive relationship is that it's helpful for our imaginations and our creative processes. Not only are we able to get information from the subconscious and also the unseen world, right? We have an increased ability to kind of practice working with our imagination, which are very powerful things, right? However, just because we are capable of increased imagination, it doesn't mean that we will necessarily use this gift skillfully, right? We can imagine all sorts of like really ratchet things, right? We can imagine worst case scenarios and apocalypses, right? And project out our fears into the future, right? Neptune, when it is unskillful, can really bring up feelings of fear and anxiety. So while we have the ability to engage in this increased imaginative potential, it's kind of our job to use this gift or this potential or this power wisely, right? Skillfully and to really instead of projecting out fear or anxiety into the future, we can really think about, oh, how can I direct this, right? How can I work with this to imagine things that like really feel good, that feel fulfilling, that feel supportive, that allow me to imagine a better future for myself, for the ones that I love, for all sentient beings, for the world. We also might we might experience increased sensitivity to the world, right? And to the people around us that we're interacting with. Again, Neptune has a lot to do with the unseen world, and Mercury is kind of gathering and processing information. And so, we might be interacting with people and having like sensations or feelings or noticings, right? And this can be good or bad, but see if we can be with this and just notice without judgment and to just be able to be with the information and perceptions that we are receiving just from being in the world without having to leap to conclusions or make judgments, right? If we use this skillfully, it can come kind of help us to come into a deeper state of presence. And if not, it can kind of spin us out into making up stories in our minds, right? To justify the sensations that we are picking up on, right? Oh, that person looked at me like this. Maybe it means this. Instead of just being like, okay, like let me notice what's in the field around me, right? And also, probably not rushing into action, right? Based on these sort of perceptions or information that we are picking up on. Because Neptune is really confusing and foggy. And so our thinking may not be like the most clear today, especially around the actions that we should take, right? Especially in Aries, which is a sign that wants to initiate and take immediate action, right? So I would just recommend noticing what you notice and trying to suspend judgment for like a day or two, right? Before taking any big actions based on what you were perceiving at the beginning of this week. And because of Neptune's kind of otherworldly and foggy qualities, we may find ourselves being pulled into daydreams and fantasies, right? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. I think the imaginal space, the daydream space is really important, right? It can be great fuel for creativity and innovation down the line. It's maybe a good time to allow our minds to just drift and think about pleasing material, right? And to just be in that state of revelry, right? Where we allow our minds to wander and see where they take us. Allow Mercury here to kind of guide us, right? And, our culture is so fixated on logic and progress that we leave very little time for daydreaming or for our minds to drift. And I think there's a lot of shame around that, right? If we're not doing or being productive or, really focused on the task at hand, I think that there's a lot of shame. And this comes back, at least for me, to like schooling, right? Where I would just like drift off and stare out the window and I'd get yelled at. And so I learned, right? Oh, that's not cool, right? That's not how we like function in society. So I need to stay very task oriented and figure out this math problem that I don't care about when I was like world building in my head. And I think that this is a really good time to sort of get back to that imaginal daydream space because what happens in this kind of like revelry space where we allow our minds to wander and drift, it helps us to sort of untangle the problems because some of the things we cannot think through, right? And they don't have a sort of logical, like A to B type of way. Sometimes we need to go in a long, circuitous route, which Mercury is really good with, to allow these things to kind of untangle, right? And, just allowing our minds to wander without judgment, right, can help us to find really creative and innovative solutions to the situations that might be making us feel kind of stuck right now. We also might find ourselves wanting to go inward today and to explore some of the rich information of our inner worlds. And this too can lead to great inspiration and creative impulses. Our inner world is just as important as the external world. And this transit really gives us an opportunity to engage with this inner imaginal world, which can help us, which can help to inform how we interact with the physical reality around us. And again, today is a great day to practice dream work, meditation, prayer, revelry, where we just allow our minds to wander and daydream, right? Practices of creativity, especially writing poetry, free writing, free association. These are all kind of mercurial things, right? Daydreaming, and then anything that really helps you to spark your imagination. So, later today, Monday, May the 26th, we have the new moon in Gemini, which is occurring at 6 degrees and 5 arc minutes of that mutable air sign. And a new moon is always going to be a sun moon conjunction. So that's happening in the same sign. And this occurs at 8:06 p.m. Pacific time and 11:06 p.m. Eastern time. And so the new moon is also making a bunch of aspects during this lunation. There's a sextile, the sun and moon are sextile to Saturn and Aries, kind of a 5 degree conjunction with Mercury, sextile to Neptune, about 5 degree sextile with Neptune, and a trine with Pluto, 3 degree trine with Pluto about. So there's sort of a lot going on here, and most of these are kind of supportive aspects, right? And Gemini has a lot to do with information and communication, right? And this new moon is within a 5 degree orb with Mercury, the ruler of the sign, and Mercury will make their superior conjunction to the sun a little later on in the week, right? And so the new moon's making these supportive aspects with Neptune and Saturn, right? Both of whom have just moved into Aries. Um, and both of these planets are within a pretty close orb of their conjunction, which we'll get within like 13, 14 minutes in July, but doesn't perfect until February of 26. So with Saturn and Neptune in sextile with this new moon, it might provide us with some information around how that conjunction is going to unfold, right? The things that might be coming up later in the year. And, the Neptune Saturn conjunction has a lot to do with like systems dissolving, right? And new systems being constructed. And, we'll talk more about that as we kind of move forward towards the summer months and that conjunction gets closer and closer. But just, pay attention to what information arises around Saturnian themes of like structure, dedication, commitment, responsibility, maturity, authority, and Neptune, which is sort of dissolving these things, right? Um, Mercury is also sextile to both of these, and Mercury ruling Gemini and in a 5-degree orb of this new moon, right? Also might help us to process or get some inspiration or some insight into how these two planets, how these two archetypes are functioning in Aries, and both of them having just moved into the sign. Saturn moved in on Saturday. Right. And so, this is an opportunity to see, okay, what does this feel like? What does this move like? How does this feel in my body? What am I noticing in my life? What information am I picking up on from the world that is helping me to kind of like process what Saturn in Aries might mean? And it's been, since 98, 99, since the last time Saturn was in Aries. Right. So, this doesn't happen every day. And there's it's helpful to leave a little space to be like, okay, what's coming up? What is the felt sense of this, limiting planet or almost outer planet? Saturn was the limit of what we could see with the naked eye. Right. And so it was the sort of limit of our known world. And what happens when this kind of limit of our bubble, right, moves into a new sign and shifts that energy? Um, it also might help us, like the new moon in relationship to these two planets or in relationship to Neptune, might help us to pick up on some of the information that Neptune is trying to communicate from the outer limits of our solar system, because Neptune's like wicked far away. And Neptune is beginning its 14-year sojourn in Aries. And so, again, I think it's slow moving and it's kind of subtle until it's not. And so this again is a really good opportunity to pick up on some of the Neptunian information, which comes again through dreams, through imagination, through creativity, through daydream, right? And through the unseen world. And also Mercury, the ruler of this new moon, right? In conjunction with the new moon and coming off of these sextiles, sextile to Saturn, which happened on Saturn's Day, on excuse me, I don't know, that Instagram just did something weird. Anyway, uh Mercury was conjunct, or sorry, Mercury was sextile to Saturn on Saturday, which is Saturn's Day. And Saturn has a lot to do with concrete thinking. And now Mercury is sextile to Neptune today, right, during this new moon. And Neptune has a lot to do with abstract thinking and intuitive awareness. And with this new moon in Gemini, we get this opportunity to hold both of these ways of being or both of these ways of thinking and to find points of integration in ourselves where the concrete and the abstract can meet and integrate and create a secret third thing, right? Where something new can be born, right? Where it doesn't have to be like, oh, it's only symbolic, oh, it's only like feeling, oh, it's only intuitive, or it's like only what I can, read or see or touch or, know empirically, right? So this is a time that we get to be with this tension or both of these things and learning ways of really being with both of these ways of knowing. This is also a chance to plant a seed of new ideas. A new moon is sort of a time of planting and kind of setting intention, right? In this dark space of the moon, a time of turning inward and also picking up on this information that's arriving from within, right? From that dark moon place in ourselves, right? That secret, quiet, still place. Right? And this is a great time to plant a seed of a new idea or a new story that can germinate and grow and bear fruit at the time of the Sagittarius full moon. Right? And Sagittarius is a sign of truth seeking and expansion and philosophy. So maybe this is a really good time to be like, hey, I've got this new idea. Hey, I've got this new story that I want to tell about myself or about my life or about my experience. Right? Oh, I have this new curiosity. Let me sit with that and give it a little space to sort of, plant in myself or in the world and tend it as it grows into the Sagittarian full moon, which is like, cool, I'm going after that. Or, oh, this is a way that I can make sense of things, right? Or this is a target that I can shoot my arrow at. So moving along till tomorrow, Tuesday, May the 27th, Mercury will be trine Pluto. That's Mercury in Gemini, trining Pluto in Aquarius. This is occurring at 3 degrees and 41 arc minutes of these air signs. And a trine is a supportive aspect that happens between two signs or two planets in the same element. Right. So this is a supportive aspect that is occurring in the element of air, right? Air dealing with thinking and communication, right? Information moving, right? Thoughts moving, communication moving. And this supportive aspect between Mercury and Pluto really invites us to go deep, right? This week, Mercury is making all of these contacts that have them moving between the realms of consciousness. Mercury is the messenger and the psychopomp, and they travel between the upper world of the superconsciousness and the lower world of the unconsciousness and the terrestrial world of our normative consciousness, somewhat normative consciousness, right? And this supportive aspect with Pluto, the lord of the underworld, right, allows them to go deep into the depths and open up communication with some of the unconscious material. Right? So early this week, we may have easier access to information that has been hidden, right, or underneath, or kind of brewing or even putrefying under the surface. Right? Sort of like digging up a compost heap a little bit and being like, oh, I see what's going on here. Right? Or even like taking the compost and spreading it. Right? Because, I think the air signs also have a lot to do with dissemination, right? And I think that this aspect will cause us to take interest in things that are happening at a deeper level, right? Gemini tends to be like very surface, but Mercury has the ability to go under, right? To go into the underworld, to bring souls back up and bring souls down, right? So this is a chance of going below the surface into that underworld realm, into the realm of Hades and Persephone, and sort of gathering some information there and being able to bring it back up. And so we may find ourselves wanting to go deeper in our communications and our interactions, right? Pluto asks us to think about what we are feeling and experiencing at a much deeper level. And while Mercury tends to be a little bit more intellectual, this combination can help us to cognitively process some of the information that can arise from our inner depths. We're able to really allow ourselves to pay attention, right? And supportive aspects take a little work, right? Hard aspects like throw us into friction and tension, and they really like demand resolution. Whereas a supportive aspect, we have to kind of like do something to engage with it, right? Which is, if you don't, that's totally fine, right? Because sometimes it's just nice to like not have very much going on, right? And like that's totally valid too. You know, Pluto is also related to power. And so this transit gives us the ability to communicate powerful things or to communicate with our own personal sense of power, right? I need to say this. This is important. You need to hear this. right? It also may help us to get in touch with some powerful information. Maybe this comes from the external world, or maybe it comes from our internal world. We might have powerful conversations today that help us to go a little deeper and to help us to sort of understand what's at those deeper levels and unlock some information. Pluto contacts can also lead to obsession, right? With Mercury, who deals with our thinking process, right? In this relationship with Pluto, it can bring up like pretty obsessive thinking. So just try and be aware of the thoughts that might be looping today or earlier this week, and we might want to just name, hey, that's a thought. Oh, that's a story, right? Or we can really try and follow these thoughts into the underworld and see where they lead because they tend to have, activating events underneath them, right? The thoughts are just spiraling around this thing that is, in the felt sense, that is seeking to be seen or known or communicated. So maybe if we find ourselves just like looping on a, like, why did I do this? Or why is that happening? Or why did they say this, right? We can see if we can, oh, let me just follow that trail, right? Let me use this practice of like, not needing to know, but just being curious. And I think Mercury's curiosity is what makes them such a great guide. Oh, where does this go? What does this do? Right. Oh, let's see where this leads, and just allowing ourselves to follow these thoughts into the underworld and see what information might be living under them. And because this is a soft aspect, right? Not a square or opposition, this idea of like obsessive thinking might not be that intense, right? This week, which is great because like that's not fun to just be looping, right? But, it's just something to be aware of because with the relationship of these planets, this is a possibility. Okay. All right. How's everybody doing? You good? Y'all cool? Right on. So we're moving along to Thursday, May the 29th. And this is Mercury's conjunction with the Sun at 9 degrees and 1 arc minute of Gemini. Sign that Mercury rules. So this is the Cazimi. Mercury entering into the heart of the sun. And this is a superior conjunction, right? The superior conjunctions happen when Mercury is direct and moving faster than the sun. And so if we think about it, we're here on planet Earth and we have, from our perspective, the sun is between us and Mercury, whereas the inferior conjunction, which happens during Mercury's retrograde process, that's when the sun is moving faster than Mercury, and Mercury is in between us and the sun. And so, these are in the Mercury cycle, these are sort of these important kind of like pivotal moments where, it heralds these inferior conjunction heralds the center or the heart of the Mercury retrograde, where the superior conjunction, as Mercury is moving faster than the sun, begins like a new Mercury cycle in some ways, as well as, kind of heralding, okay, like I know now that the Mercury retrograde is coming up in a month or so. I believe it begins in July. Um, so this is the superior conjunction, and Mercury is moving at this point from a morning star, where they are visible, or they would be visible on the eastern horizon just before dawn, to an evening star, where they will be visible when they get far enough away from the sun on the western horizon just after sunset. And so when Mercury is conjunct the sun, it is an opportunity for clarity. The Cazimi is like this moment of like clarity or like, oh, I see, like I saw the light, and it happens like briefly in a flash, right? Because Mercury is very fast moving. And this is occurring in Mercury's sign of Gemini, right? So Mercury has a lot of power here, especially in the heart of the sun. And a planet that is in the heart of the sun is really protected from any, harmful influences, right? It is, sort of in this like shining, radiant, like throne room of the solar god, right? Of the solar archetype. And so, this helps to really empower Mercury, right? They're being in the sign of their rulership as they enter into the heart of the sun, right? Into this throne room to, be in communication with that solar power. And like I said before, Mercury as the messenger moves between all of the realms, the super consciousness, right? Or the Olympian realm up there, right? The conscious realm of our terrestrial world, right? Our normative consciousness, and the unconscious realm of the underworld, right? And so, we had them trying Pluto a little earlier in the week, right? And so maybe they're taking some of this information that we gathered from the depths and like bringing it up into the sun, right? Into the throne room of the sun, into the altar of the sun, and also maybe to the realm of the superconscious, right? Because in the superior conjunction, they are kind of above the sun. The sun is between Mercury and us. So I think about this as, them like being a little closer to the Olympian realm and a little closer to that super consciousness, right? And so in the superior conjunction, I think they are helping to mediate and translate the messages of the super consciousness down to us through like the radiating light of the sun. You can think of the super consciousness as any way that you want, right? The archetypal realm, the collective unconscious, your higher power, spirit, source. There's a myriad of names for what that could be. And I think it's, we all connect with that in some way, right? Consciously or unconsciously. I think that that sense is kind of embedded in all of us in our DNA. And, there's no right way of accessing it. But I think that during this superior conjunction, during this cazimi, it's an opportunity to get some information that Mercury is translating to us, right? From that realm, however you want to picture that or conceive of that, however you connect with it. But this is an opportunity to sort of tune into that a little bit, right? And so we might think about this as an opportunity to receive some information from our higher selves. I'll just use that word for simplicity's sake, right? And, as we are in communication with this higher self, you know, we might get to learn a little bit about what our higher self wants for us, right? Which, what I have found in my life, right, may not be aligned with what our ego thinks we want, right? Or what the ego thinks is even possible. And we can think about the sun as the ego identity, the cohering principle of the self, right? This is who I am, right? Right, this is what I need to do. And sometimes that is not necessarily like on the same page as what like my higher self wants from me or thinks I should do. And that schism can be really difficult. And this is an opportunity to come sort of into that connection a little bit more, open up a dialogue. So this is a moment where we can just open up a little communication with this higher self and to find some awareness of what that part of us might be calling us to do or asking from us. And this can be kind of difficult because we may think one course of action is the right thing. Or we may think that we have to be some type of way based on our conditioning or what society tells us. But what might be asked of us or what is possible might be kind of different from that. And as we come into this moment, right, of this Kazemi, there's an opportunity to really hold the multiplicity of what is happening right now in myself, right, and my interactions with the world, you know, and, to sort of be with that and to open up a little space for how things can be, not how I want them to be or how I think they should be, right? And the sun kind of represents, again, the solar consciousness, right? The sun says, I am this, right? I am me. I am I, right? Capital I, me, right? Sun also shines a light on things to know exactly what they are. And our minds are these amazing things that will take like a little bit of information and create a whole narrative based around these like little scraps of information to try and find coherence, right? Based on whatever we have experienced in the past or what we think we know. And all of this is filtered through our experience as a single, like I in the world. This is me, right? Each of us kind of functioning like the central sun in our own personal solar system. But again, Mercury is this twilight archetype, right? They live in both day and night. They live in both worlds, right? And they live in all of that space between. And now Mercury is moving into this evening star phase, right? So going from light to dark. And because of this, they are able to hold various truths and connect with myriad possibilities. And as they form this conjunction with the sun in their sign, right, of information rich Gemini, we can move beyond this sort of binary of right and wrong, day and night, this and that, black and white, and have a chance to hold the sort of web of information that allows us to engage with the rich fabric of plurality without really needing to know. So this is a chance to really sit with what could be and what might be asked of us that might be outside of the light of the sun's sense of this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is what I need to be. You know. I also want to say that the superior conjunction is related to Mercury's retrograde conjunction with the sun that occurred back on March 24th of this year at 4 degrees of Aries. So I don't know, you might want to think back about what was going on at that time when Mercury is making their inferior or retrograde conjunction. Right? And at that time, Mercury was between the sun and the earth, right? And it was at the heart of their underworld or retrograde journey. And so during that time, we may have gotten a little clarity about what Mercury was excavating from the depths. And now Mercury is kind of bringing out what they uncovered and helping us to integrate that material, but from a position of being above the sun, right? Higher than the sun's perspective or beyond our kind of ego perspective, which sometimes can be really limiting because the ego is really designed to keep us safe in the world, which is great, but sometimes it creates kind of a narrow view. And so this Kazemi, right, the superior conjunction may illuminate some of the thought patterns or connections that were being developed during Mercury's retrograde journey. Now that the underworld unconscious material is being brought up to the superconscious realm of the gods, right, or the archetypes, or the higher self, or whatever, and is being kind of transmitted down through the sun. Right? And there's a chance to integrate some of that information here. And the information that arrives can help us to understand some of the paths that we have walked and rewalked and then walked again during that Mercury retrograde, right? This is an opportunity to sort of like look back from a higher perspective and be like, oh, that's how that played out, or oh, that's why that was happening for me instead of to me. Right? Oh, that's like I'm putting the pieces together, right? I see what's going on here because Mercury is all about making connections, and so we can begin making connections of what was unfolding since Mercury stationed retrograde or made that retrograde conjunction. And so this is also an opportunity from this higher perspective of opening a new way forward, right? This doesn't need to be like totally directed by that solar ego consciousness, but can work in collaboration with other aspects of ourselves that operate at the sort of edges of the light of consciousness or even beyond it. And we have again this opportunity to be picking up on some of that information and kind of integrating it and helping us to move forward in skillful ways. So the Kazemi is also a moment of death and rebirth. Right. When the old day star Mercury goes into the burn up in the flaming heart of the sun. I love that image. And then it is reborn again as an evening star. And this is related to all of the death and rebirth myths of Adonis and Dionysus and Jesus and Osiris, and there are many others from various cultures around the world. And I think Osiris is probably a very fitting one today for this Kazemi and for this idea of multiplicity, right? Because Osiris was tricked and dismembered by his brother Set, right? Who is a chaos god, right? The god of darkness. and dismembered him and set scattered Osiris's body parts all over Egypt. And then Osiris's wife, Isis, travels all around and collects all of his parts and builds temples at all the places where she found parts of his body, and then remembers them, right? Puts them back together. And so as we bring the kind of multiplicity into coherence, it requires a process of remembering. Right? Taking all of these disparate parts, bringing them into the sun and remembering them, right? In this cohering solar, life-giving ball. And so during this Kazemi moment, there may be a remembering that we engage in. This might be the integration of different ideas or truths or identities or parts of ourselves or parts of our lives. There also might be a literal remembering of information that was lost or forgotten, lessons that we had learned that are re-emerging right now, right? There may be like this deep remembering from our genetics or from past lives or parallel lives or the transpersonal parts of ourselves, right? Like remembering the song of our life that we are born into, that every cell in our body knows how to hum along with, that may be forgotten as we kind of deal with the demands of the world and the trials and tribulations of life on spaceship Earth. So this is a real opportunity this week to sort of tune in and remember your life song, whatever that looks like or means to you, right? The sort of vibration, the hum that like you are living at and that you are called to sort of walk in and sing along with. Okay, yeah, rounding out the week, Sunday, June the 1st. Venus in Aries conjunct Chiron in Aries. This is going on at 25 degrees and 44 arc minutes. So Venus, planet of love, relationship, values, beauty, aesthetics, creativity, all that good stuff. Chiron, the wounded healer. Chiron is, the wound that won't heal and our sort of the ways that we try to manage that or mitigate that or heal that or work with that. And through that process, there is a lot of growth that happens. But it ain't easy, you know. It ain't easy being Chiron. And so with this conjunction, it can bring up relational wounding, right? Venus has a lot to do with connection as well as our value system. And for a lot of us, right, love was sort of conditional or transactional, right? If you do this, then you're a good child. Oh, if you behave or succeed, then you get attention and appreciation. Oh, if you do this for me, then I will give you love, right? Then I will show you affection. And so this shapes and molds the ways in which we reach out for connection and the ways in which we feel like we can receive love. It also like helps to shape the ways in which we feel deserving of love and connection. And sometimes the ways that we learn to get connection and attention is out of alignment with our core value system and what actually feels good or nourishing and supporting. So we may have learned patterns where we betray ourselves and our core values to try and stay in connection. And this creates a wound. This is painful. It creates cognitive dissonance because love feels good, but self-abandonment feels bad. And it's like, okay, the story might go, oh, the only way for me to receive love is to abandon myself. And so I'm constantly like walking around feeling like I'm not whole or I'm out of alignment with myself, but I'm receiving this thing that I think I want, right? Or if I choose myself or I stay in alignment with my values, I'm afraid that this love is going to go away, right? Or I'm not going to be able to be in connection. And that's incredibly painful. And so, one of the things that might come up during this Venus Chiron conjunction in Aries is the wounds of love and the ways in which we may have in the past or continue to betray our values to be able to be in connection and to receive love. And when we do this, carry a wound with us, right? right? A wound that we're trying to heal through external love and validation, but never really heals, right? Because we are continuing to be in a space of self-abandoning, in order to receive what we think will help us, right? You know, Chiron is the poison and is oftentimes the medicine, right? And sometimes the poison can be the medicine, right? It's just finding the right dosage. And Chiron offers us a chance to look at these sort of old stories we might be holding around deserving and stories and sort of rework them, right? And kind of like dig deep into what feels truly aligned for us. And as well as, the fears of abandonment that might arise from being like, oh, if I don't behave in this certain way, then I'm going to lose that love, right? Or if I don't do this, then I'm not going to be cared for. Or if I show up in my authenticity, then it'll be too much and I'll be left, right? And Chiron knows a lot about abandonment, right? Chiron was abandoned at birth. His father was Saturn, who just had a one night stand with his mom, turned himself into a horse, and ran away. And his mom, when Chiron was born, half human, half horse, little baby centaur, his mom was like, "Oh my God, I can't, like, that's too much. That's gross. I don't want that." And turned herself into a linden tree instead of raising Chiron. It's like heartbreaking, right? And so, in the sense of like abandonment, right? Like little baby Chiron and his mom's like, I don't want to raise you, right? When this happens, the child, right, tends to make it their fault because it's psychologically too much to believe that a caregiver isn't capable of showing up because we like literally need our caregivers when we're little to survive. And if they can't be there, we can die, right? So it brings up deep kind of survival fears, right? Survival issues. And it's easier to be like, it's my fault because there's a sense of control there than to be like, that person doesn't love me or that person is incapable, right? Because there's no control over that. And like, if that's true, then we might die at any moment if they don't care about us, if they don't love us, if they're not able to be there. So it's a lot easier to be like, oh, if I just do this or this or this, then I will be okay. Right. And so again, we develop these patterns of, oh, when I behave in this way, I receive love and attention or food or like the ability to stay alive. And if I behave in these other ways, then that throws that all into jeopardy. Right. And so the child can like really internalize these feelings and make up this story. Right. If I can only do this or that, right, then they'll love me. If I only work better or harder, then I'll receive the care and attention and affection that I need. And we carry these stories with us and we apply them to all other situations in our lives and to all other unmet needs and to other relationships where we can feel like, oh, if I can only make myself a certain way or make this person see that I'm right, right, then I will receive the love that I've been longing for. And this might keep us in relationships, ignoring the places where our wounds become activated. Right? Or it might keep us seeking for relationships to fix these old relational wounds. Right. And we might notice patterns of self-abandonment and people pleasing or conflict avoidance to try and stay in that connection, to try and heal that early childhood wound, right? Or that relational wound. This can happen, various points in our life. Chiron was a great healer and a teacher of heroes, but he could never heal his own wound. So he was really holding a lot for other people while he continued to carry the weight of his own pain and wounding. Right. Oh, like Achilles, I got you. Oh, Jason, I got you. Meanwhile, he's like limping along and suffering. Right. Oh, don't worry about me. I got this. I got this. I'm cool. Oh, let me help you with this thing. You know. So we might replicate this pattern, try and hold the things for those we are in a relationship with, right? And this is, friendships, intimate partnerships, business relationships. This, doesn't have to be, just like one-on-one, intimate partnership, right? This is all of our one-on-one relationships. And we may, again, hold things for those that we are in connection with, which is like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But we might hold too much, right? We might deny our actual needs, being like, oh, if I just do this for this person, then they will give me what I think I need. Then they will give me the love that I'm like really craving for, right? Or we might try to like heal or help or fix other people, right? Thinking that if we can just fix them, right, somebody else will fix us and heal our wound, right? Oh, if I just like make you better, then I will be okay. Which like I have engaged in that so many times in my life. You have no idea, right? And it's never worked. It has absolutely never worked. Take it from this guy, right? And it seems like when I look at it logically, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to go out there to fix somebody else so that they'll fix me. But like, what if I just cut out the middleman and like, cared about myself? And then parts of me are like, no, that'll never work. We couldn't possibly do that. Like, absolutely not. Go help that person. So, again, we might ignore our own needs and really put the emphasis on other people's problems, right? Really hoping that, like, eventually it will be okay. And again, this may come back to some transactional ideas of love, thinking that if I help the other person, they will give me the love that I've been looking for. And it usually doesn't work like that. I'm sorry. Instead, it tends to make us feel more lonely as our needs continue to go unacknowledged and thus unmet. And so Chiron suffers from the wound of the Hydra poison, right? And the Hydra poison, the Hydra blood has no cure. So in this context, we can think about the Hydra poison as old patterns in relationship and old relational wounds that become reactivated throughout our lives. Mm. We may seek to kind of cure this poison by replicating these patterns and thinking that this time it's going to be different, right? Or if I can just make this person love me, then it will fix the pain of not receiving the love that I really needed at a certain point in my life. And all this does is reactivate that core wound, right, without actually curing it. And I think about, the Hydra poison. Chiron got hit in the leg with an arrow, right? That was dipped in hydra poison in his horse leg, in the sort of animal body, right? In this sort of unconscious, like desire body, right? And this wound doesn't heal, right? And, he'll do all these things to try and soothe it, and it'll heal up for a time, and then something will happen, and it'll reopen and fester, and he has to like take all this time and care to, try a new modality to try and fix it. And I think about, relationship functioning in that way, right? Oh, like I found a new person that will fix me, right? And then like the wound heals up for a little bit, and then we find ourselves just engaging in the same pattern, right? Trying to really cure that core wound, that origin of the hydra poison, right? Thinking that, oh, this person will do that. But I'm just engaging in the same pattern, seeking for something that this person didn't sign up for or isn't available for or doesn't even know about because I don't even know about it, right? And the wound just opens up again, right? And so we might find ourselves in these kind of repetition complexes, these patterns of, being like, oh, this will fix me, right? And it does for a time, and then it just opens up again because, they're like, this isn't actually curing it, right? This is just alleviating the suffering for a little bit, you know, because it's hard to look within and it's hard to like really do that work to clean out that hydra poison or to find a remedy for it. And the only remedy that like Chiron ultimately gets is death, right? But like this is and I'm saying this not to be like, oh, like this is never going to be okay. And like the only solution is like when we get to leave this mortal coil, like that's stupid. That's not what I'm trying to communicate here. But I think that what Chiron's death and ultimately transcendence, because Chiron sacrifices his life for Prometheus and is brought into the heavens as a constellation because of his sacrifice. And what this makes me think about is this constantly trying to be like, oh, I gotta fix this, I gotta fix this, I gotta fix this, I gotta fix this, right? And this, wound closing, wound opening, wound closing, wound opening. And what gets him out of the cycle is just surrender, is just letting go. And sometimes that is the medicine that we need, or that's the thing that helps us to break the cycle, is being like, you know what, I'm not going to engage in this anymore. I'm going to start a new pattern. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to cut this cord. I'm going to lay this to rest, right? Which is really difficult because, again, it triggers these sort of core wounding of like, oh my God, I need like a caregiver to care for me, or I need this person to love me, or I'm afraid of being alone. And when Chiron is like, you know what? Fuck it, right? I'm just like, I'll be alone. I'll be a constellation. I don't even know, right? I'll step into the unknown, and that's really what it is. I will let go of this cycle that I really know, and I will step into the unknown, and that's what, allows him to heal, right? Allows him to be free. And so, we are these relational beings, and we really need each other. And much of our wounding, like, really comes through relationships. So, in some ways, we need to heal in relationship. However, this can be really confusing because we might think that I need this person to love me to fix this pain. And seeking an external solution for an internal problem probably isn't going to work, right? However, relationships can really provide a space that is safe enough for us to turn inward and really learn to treat our wounds through recognizing and shifting old patterns. And the relational container can really create a lot of safety for us to be able to do this. And ultimately, this can lead us to learning to love ourselves. What? Impossible. What an order. I can't go through with it. Right? Even if we feel like we are like a weird, wounded centaur freak, right? That's also really beautiful. So during this transit, we might find beauty in unusual places, right? Like a weird, wounded centaur freak. Ta-da! Right? you know, or like things that usually seem unattractive or commonplace. We might value what others find, what others miss, what others like disregard, or what others even discard. And this is the part of the gift of this transit, the opportunity not only to appreciate the beauty in the world, but in ourselves as well. And and this is part of the medicine that is offered here, right? It might just be simple joy. Doesn't have to be big, right? Supportive connections. The people who see us for who we are, people who see us as beautiful or good. And just being able to take that in. Right? I think that is the medicine here. Right? And to take that in, that appreciation, and apply it to those places that have been suffering. Even the experience of taking in these simple pleasures and joy can help soothe the places that are feeling activated by those core relational wounds. And it can change the story from one of not enough or I'm too much, or the one where we are getting just what we need to be all right in this moment, right? Just like enough to like hang on, right? To a story where it's like, I'm good here, right? I'm good. Right? We can just start there from this moment in the sense of like, I'm all right in this moment. I don't need anything else, right? And I also want to bring in and landing the plane here. There's a component of grief and heartbreak that we get with this transit, where each loss triggers every previous loss, right? When we think about a breakup or a death, or we experience, relational rift or, something like that, it triggers every previous loss, right? So we may find a chain of sorrow that becomes activated by an event. And this conjunction might bring up thoughts of those things, or having to hold some of that. And in my circle, there have been a lot of people who have passed away recently. Not necessarily people that I'm super close with, but these deaths and losses have affected a community that I'm held in, right? And I feel that kind of disturbance in the force. And even though these people are not, I don't feel very, I wasn't very close with these people, I can still acknowledge the sadness of their passing. And also, it brings up my own experience of death and loss and heartbreak, right? And brings up a lot of grief and sorrow. And, the grief around everyone that I've lost. And for me, I'm just trying to sit with that and let that feeling of sorrow really soften my heart, which isn't easy, right? But this is also a good Chiron Venus medicine because it's the places where the heart breaks that it lets in more of the light. And it's these places, right, where we can sit with that sorrow that gives us a chance to really expand our capacity for love and joy. And so, with that, my friends, I'm going to close with uh, just reading a little passage from Khalil Gibran's The Prophet on joy and sorrow, which I think is sort of fitting for the Venus Chiron conjunction, and maybe a nice way to end out today's Wizard Report. And uh, The Prophet is maybe one of my favorite books of all time. That's like one of my desert island books. And if you've never read it, No Time Like the Present. It's great. It's a short read. But I'm going to read you this short little passage on joy and sorrow and then let you go. Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And the selfsame well from which your laughter rises will oftentimes be filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep in your heart, and you shall find it is only what which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say, "Joy is greater than sorrow," and others say, "Nay, sorrow is the greater." But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. Verily, you are suspended like scales between your sorrow and your joy. Only when you are empty are you at a standstill and balanced. When the treasure keeper you to the weight, his lifts you to weigh his gold and his silver, needs must your joy or your sorrow rise or fall. So, with that, my friends, thanks for tuning in to another week in space. Um, yeah, it's a pleasure getting to do this. A real honor to be here each and every week. Same wizard time, same wizard channel. I'll take a look at the comments in a second. If y'all want to stick around, I can answer some questions. But yeah, I just appreciate y'all, and I hope y'all have a blessed new moon in Gemini and an excellent week in space. I will be here, yeah, next week, same wizard time, same wizard channel, maybe different background, who knows? And yeah, keep tuning in if you want. This is on YouTube. You can check it out at Camp Wizard Camp. It also comes out in podcast version if you don't want to look at my beautiful background. I don't know. I'm available for tarot and astrology readings. I also do some astrological coaching. And yeah, hit me up. My website is campwizardcamp.com. I do a bunch of other things. I don't know. I'm here. I like astrology. I'm here to help. So if you're having some challenges during these trying and turbulent times, hit me up and we'll see what we can do. Other than that, I will let you all go and enjoy your day. Yeah, thanks for being there. And if you like this and you know other people who would like this, spread the word. Send it to the folks. I like to get this out there, and I hope it reaches as many people who this can help as possible. So, please help me in that endeavor. Thank you very much. And until next time, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and as always, may the force be with you. Bye now.